For 15 years, she worked as a janitor, a cook, and a washerwoman. She wanted to be a nurse, but they wouldn't let her into nursing school until she was 33 years old. And when they did, only 4 of the 42 students graduated. That's a 9.5% completion rate. And she was one of them. This is Mary Eliza Mahoney and what her story teaches us about heart. Hi again, everybody. I'm Shar, and this is the 5th video for Black History Month, where I'm highlighting 6 Black pioneers in the trades and industrial fields. Now, we've already covered McKinley Thompson Jr., the designer of the iconic Ford Bronco, who was the only Black industrial designer at Ford. We talked about Elijah McCoy, whose technical excellence became the standard. Literally, he was the real McCoy. And then we talked about Adrian Bennett, who stayed on through 5 years of harassment to become the first Black woman master plumber. And then last week, we met Alice Parker, the Black woman who invented modern home heating and HVAC systems and was erased from history. But Alice Parker had a certificate in academy nursing, but she still landed out solving a mechanical problem. Now we're going to talk about Mary Eliza Mahoney, who wanted to be a nurse, and she spent 15 years learning the tribal knowledge she needed to survive. In 1879, she became the first Black professionally licensed nurse in the United States. The woman who waited 15 years for a chance. And this is what her story teaches us about heart. Now, Mary Elizabeth Mahoney was born in 1845 in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Her parents were freed slaves who had escaped from North Carolina before the Civil War. They were searching for a life with less discrimination. But Mary grew up during the Civil War, watching nurses care for wounded soldiers, and from an early age, she knew that's what she wanted to do. At the age of 10, she attended the Phillips School in Boston, one of the first integrated schools in the country. She studied morality, humanity, English, history, and mathematics. And as a teenager, she knew she wanted to be a nurse. But there was a problem. Black women weren't allowed in nursing schools. So she found a different way. At the New England Hospital for Women and Children, Mary Mahoney started working. She was mopping floors, cooking meals, and washing the laundry. Occasionally, they would need extra hands, so she would work as a nurse's aide. But for 15 years, Mary Mahoney worked at that hospital doing whatever they needed. What she was really doing was gathering what we call in the trades tribal knowledge. She watched the nurses work. She learned their techniques. She understood the hierarchy and the procedures, basically the unwritten rules. She made herself indispensable because she knew if she was valuable enough, maybe they'll give her a chance. And in 1872, the New England Hospital for Women and Children opened the first professional nursing school in the United States. Mary Mahoney had already been working there for years, mopping the floor, cooking the meals, learned everything she could. She had prepared for 15 years, and she wasn't going to let this opportunity slip away. So she applied. And in 1878, at the age of 33, she was finally admitted. Those 15 years of gaining knowledge were finally about to pay off. Now, the nursing program was brutal. 16 months long, shifts from 5:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., 16-hour days. Students attended lectures from the doctors. They learned to take the vital signs, bandage wounds, care for patients, and they worked in surgical wards, maternity wards, and the medical wards. They were responsible for 6 patients each. And at the end of the program, they had to work in private homes, caring for families, many of which didn't want a black woman in their house. 42 students entered the program in 1878, and only 4 graduated in 1879, a 9.5% completion rate. And Mary Eliza Mahoney was one of them. This made her the first African American in the United States to earn a professional nursing license. But after graduation, Mary didn't pursue public nursing. Why? Because the discrimination was overwhelming. Hospitals did not want to hire black nurses. Patients didn't want black nurses caring for them. The profession didn't see her as a professional. They saw her as a servant. So Mary became a private nurse. She worked for wealthy white families up and down the East Coast. Mothers and their newborn children mostly. Now, she was known for her efficiency, patience, and caring bedside manner. She was so good that families would request her specifically, but she was still never seen truly as an equal. So in 1896, Mary Mahoney joined the Nurses Association alumni of the United States and Canada, which nowadays we now know as the American Nurses Association. She was one of the only black members, and the association was not very welcoming. Black nurses were excluded, marginalized, and dismissed. So in 1908, Mary Mahoney co-founded the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses, the NACGN. At their first convention in 1909, she gave the opening speech. She was elected as their national chaplain, and she was given a lifetime membership. And then she spent the rest of her life recruiting black women into nursing. The number of black nurses doubled from 1910 to 1930, largely because of her work. From 1911 to 1912, Mary served as director of the Howard Colored Orphan Asylum in New York. And after 40 years of nursing, she finally retired. But she didn't stop fighting. In 1920, the 19th Amendment was ratified, giving women the right to vote. And on August 18, 1920, Mary Eliza Mahoney walked into Ward 13 in Boston and registered to vote. She was 76 years old. She was one of the first women in Boston to register. She didn't wait for the right to vote. She was at the front of the line. 3 years later, in 1923, she was diagnosed with breast cancer. She battled it for 3 years, and then on January 4th, 1926, Mary Eliza Mahoney died at the age of 80. She died at the New England Hospital for Women and Children, the same hospital where she had mopped the floors, the same hospital where she had washed the dishes, the same hospital where she had finally been allowed to heal. She died there as a legend. In 1936, 10 years after her death, the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses established the Mary Mahoney Award in her honor. It's given to nurses who advance equal opportunities in the profession. Where the NACGN merged with the American Nurses Association in 1951, the award continued. It's still given today. In 1976, Mary was inducted into the American Nurses Association Hall of Fame. And in 1993, she was inducted into the National Women's Hall of Fame. And today, there's a Mary Eliza project in Boston that transcribes the voting records of the first women to register in 1920. Her name is right there, Ward 13, on August 18th, 1920. Her legacy opening doors for every black nurse who came after her. And here's what Mary Eliza Mahoney's story teaches us about heart. Mary Mahoney spent 15 years mopping floors, cooking meals, and doing the laundry. But she just wasn't working. She was learning. She watched the nurses and she asked questions. She gathered the knowledge she needed to survive that brutal nursing program. When the door finally opened, she was ready. Only 4 of 42 students graduated in that program, and Mary was one of them. Not because she was lucky, because she had spent 15 years preparing. That's hard. Now, if you're an outlier in the trades right now, here's what Mary teaches us. Your heart is measured in years, not days. Don't just wait for permission. Prepare until you're undeniable. And when you finally get through that door, hold it open for those and everyone behind you. Mary Mahoney worked as a janitor, a cook, and a washerwoman for 15 years before she was allowed to become a nurse. She graduated at the age of 34 from a program with a 9.5% completion rate. She worked for 40 years. She co-founded the National Association of Colored Graduate Nurses, and she was one of the first women in Boston to register to vote on August 18, 1920, at the front of the line. And she died as a legend in the same hospital where she once mopped floors. When that door finally opened, she was ready. Not because she got lucky, because she had the heart to prepare for 15 years and then the heart to open the door for everyone else who came after her. You're standing on her shoulders. Thank you, everybody. Check out the pre-ride checklist and the app at the8secondlife.com, and keep an eye out for the Iron and Instinct assessment coming soon, where you can find out if you leave with technical competence or connection, and how you can learn to balance both. Because heart isn't about waiting for permission. It's about preparing until you're undeniable, and then making sure the next generation doesn't have to wait 15 years. Thanks, everybody. Stay in the middle.